Hello, I'm Georgie Barrett and welcome to OneWeb's Launch 13. Yes, this is the first launch of 2022 and we're going to see another 34 satellites joining the 394 already in low Earth orbit. For this launch, we return to Kourou in French Guiana, which is where the very first launch of the OneWeb constellation took place almost 3 years ago, on the 27th of February 2019, with the very first 6 OneWeb satellites. Gosh, what a long way we've come since then. Well, fast forward to today, and in addition to seeing the liftoff, we also get access to operations from inside the Jupiter Launch Control Center. Now, the theme for this launch, Launch 13, is all about responsible space. So what does that actually mean, and how are OneWeb incorporating sustainability into their policy? Well, let's find out from OneWeb's VP for Space Infrastructure Development, Maurizio Vanotti.
Responsible space is really linked to the idea of treating space as a natural resource, same as land, air, water. Over the last 5 to 10 years, we've been witnessing a revolution in space. OneWeb is deploying an infrastructure of 648 satellites, and the objective is to connect the unconnected, to be there where the fiber is not. As part of our Responsible Space initiative, OneWeb is taking ownership of some of the aspects related to flying such a large number of satellites. In the short term, satellites in space have to coexist with the needs of astronomers and radio frequency astronomers, and in the future we'll also have to guarantee that the orbits, space as a natural resource, is not polluted. First aspect of responsible space is responsible design, which means really design reliably in order to make sure that even if the satellite has a finite lifetime, we responsibly take them back and deorbit these satellites safely. Besides the physical pollution, there's another aspect which is the light pollution of our skies overnight. The satellites, when they reflect the sunlight, are visible in the sky. And when satellites cross the field of view of telescopes, they can affect the observations. For these reasons, we are proud to announce that we've launched an initiative with the Galassine Observatory in the south of Italy. They will lead an independent observation campaign that will analyze the reflectivity and the brightness of our Generation 1 satellites.
New satellite constellations are trying to offer connectivity everywhere in the world. A larger quantity of satellites means light pollution.
Satellites in space are made of metals and reflective material, and so they act like mirrors that reflect the sunlight back to Earth. Here at the Galassine Center, we measure the brightness of the satellites.
This data will improve the next generation of satellites and reduce the reflectivity of the new satellites.
We're going to use these reliable data to influence the design of our Generation 2 in order to reduce the level of brightness.
As astronomers, we do really hope this cooperation will be a first step to improve the relationship between the satellite constellations and the astronomical community.
Having new satellite constellation is something fundamental for our progress. But on the other side, it's also important to preserve the darkness of our sky and also the work of the astronomers. So it's important, and it's very appreciated that companies like OneWeb are working in synergy with astronomers in order to mitigate the light pollution effect of the satellites, and so starting a new responsible space approach.
What we are really doing here is putting responsible space at the forefront of our vision. The objective of this collaboration is to have a Generation 2 satellites that reflect less light.
Thank you, Maurizio. Now, as with every launch, OneWeb is supported by the planning and expertise of ArianeSpace. They've provided the Soyuz launch vehicles for every mission so far. And not only that, every moment of the launch itself is controlled and monitored by them. From the Jupiter Launch Control Centre in Kourou, French Guiana, and back in ArianeSpace's headquarters in Évry, France. We're now live with ArianeSpace's CEO, Stefan Israel, from the ArianeSpace's headquarters. Stefan, hello. How are things going in Kourou?
Hello, everybody. Things are going very well from Kourou. We have all our teams there to prepare the launch and the final operations leading to the liftoff, which is now very close, very close.
It is very close, and I'm delighted to hear that everything is going well, because I know this is always a crucial time for you guys. This is the 13th launch and the first OneWeb mission for 2022, but there's plenty more to come, isn't there?
Yes, so this is the first mission of the year for ArianeSpace, the first for OneWeb, but we are going to be very busy this year for our dear customer OneWeb, from 2 spaceports, Guiana Space Center as today, but also from Baikonur, Russian Cosmodrome, and we will work a lot for OneWeb.
Now, we heard earlier from Maurizio, who was speaking about responsible space, which of course is the theme for this mission. How is ArianeSpace committing to a more sustainable future when it comes to space?
We in ArianeSpace are very committed to a sustainable space. The more we launch, the more we go to low Earth orbit for constellations such as OneWeb, the more we must be responsible. For that, in Guiana, we have all the ISO certification, which attests that we limit our impact on the link to space activities. And moreover, we are operating under a unique space law, which is a French space law, which is all about protecting space.
Well, it's great to hear that you have all those systems in place currently. Can you tell us a little bit more about the mission that's actually taking place today in just a few minutes?
Yes, so tonight we are going to orbit 34 more satellites for OneWeb. It will lead the total satellites orbited to 428. These 34 satellites will be separated in 9 different separations during a mission of 3 hours and 33 minutes.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it all unfold. And it's not the only thing we've got looking forward to. We're also going to pass a very important milestone, aren't we?
For sure. We are launching Soyuz from the French Guiana tonight, and this launch will orbit more than 100 satellites orbited by Soyuz from French Guiana since the beginning of its operation in 2011. So it is also another milestone we are going to make tonight.
Well, a milestone that deserves congratulations. Thank you, Stefan, for taking time out of your very busy schedule, and of course, good luck with the mission.
Thank you very much.
Well, we are now going to stay with our launch theme of responsible space, because last week a group of senior representatives from the UK government and space industry met at the Harwell Science and Innovation Campus near Oxford. Top of their agenda was the opportunity to progress space sustainability and bring together a broader coalition of support to highlight the importance of protecting this critical natural resource. They were able to present their discussions to none other than His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales. So let's have a little listen to what they had to say.
Space is phenomenal, right? It is unbelievably important to our way of life on Earth. From sat-navs to stock markets, we rely on space, and we're only going to need space more for the future. Today here in Harwell was about a conversation between industry, so OneWeb, Astroscale, and the government and the Prince of Wales, looking at how we keep space sustainable and safe for future generations.
Space sustainability is vital for 2 reasons. Firstly, in the last 40, 50 years, we put a lot of debris as a planet up in space, 4,000 dead satellites, 1 million pieces of debris. And we're now increasingly reliant on space for everything from mobile phones to air traffic control to ship navigation and 1 million other functions in the daily economy. So making sure that that space is sustainable and that satellites aren't damaged by debris is vital to every single one of us.
Astroscale is really the global leader in promoting space sustainability, and we're developing technologies globally to not only bring down failed spacecraft from, say, constellations, but also to bring down things like upper stages of rockets, 2 or 3 tons to bring those down safely, and also at geostationary to actually extend the life of spacecraft, so docking with them to allow them to operate, make money for longer. And we're working very closely with OneWeb on a public-private partnership to prove our technology.
Space sustainability is a really important topic now. It has been an important topic for many, many years, but it's become critical now because of the pace of launch of spacecraft. We used to launch fewer than 100 satellites a year. Now it's up in over thousands if we follow the plans that are expected. And with that in mind, we must have a way to ensure that spacecraft we're launching now have a guaranteed recovery option on board. So that means we need redundancy in the capability of removing spacecraft from orbits, so those orbits stay clean and reusable for future missions, because so much of what we do on Earth depends on the infrastructure in space.
I think for OneWeb, what responsible space means, it means responsible design of satellites. It also means responsible operation. It also means responsible removal of those satellites as we go forward. And I think we are moving ahead of the industry on that. I think we have a leadership role to play, and we should actually continue to lead in this regard.
Space sustainability relies on people working together. And although space is this incredible domain in which people naturally want to do the right thing very often, you have to have governments and regulation to make sure the rules of space are clear.
Industry needs a voice in these discussions, because without it we get misunderstood and we get regulation that doesn't work for successful industry. Across the globe, countries are competing with regulation, and so we have to have a voice explaining what's needed and what's required so that we can have the best possible competitive environment.
If we want to develop our capabilities in space, we need to take the academic research, we need to work with the businesses that can properly commercialise it, and we need to be able to work with government that holds responsibility for the policy and the regulation of the environment in space to make sure that we can do the best job possible.
We can't do this alone. In the end, space is a common for all of us, and we need international collaboration. In the end, we need a space commonwealth, good nations committed to a good and sustainable space. That's why the visit of His Royal Highness here today, to signal his willingness to support that for us, is so important.
Space is a shared resource like everything else on this planet, and it's the right thing to do for us and the responsible thing for us to do to make sustainability a central part of what we do at OneWeb and what we believe in as we go forward.
A fascinating insight there into the work being done to protect space. Now let's go back to the Jupiter Launch Control Centre to speak to Chris McLaughlin, OneWeb's Chief of Government Regulation and Engagement, who was actually there last week at the Space Sustainability meeting. Hello, Chris. First of all, can I just ask you, how does it feel like to be there at Liftoff?
George, it's absolutely fantastic. There's about 6 minutes to go. I think there's a lot of people here in the Jupiter control room waiting for that launch, counting down the minutes and looking forward to what we hope will be a very successful launch.
Well, we are also counting down along with you. Earlier, we saw you share your thoughts about regulation from the Space Sustainability meeting. Why is responsible space such an important part of OneWeb's mission?
OneWeb has had responsible space since the outset as one of its main parameters. We are determined to leave no trace. We're determined to be there for a long-term future, and as such, we're all committed, every single employee, to ensuring that all of our satellites are responsibly managed and that when they're deorbited, they're responsibly deorbited. Our hope is that we can be both environmentally sensitive and produce a very successful business.
Yeah, two very important parts of the mission. How is OneWeb supporting the UK National Space Strategy then?
Well, I'd hesitate, but I think we are a very key part of the National Space Strategy. I mean, OneWeb has an investor in the United Kingdom government, and we are part of its overall plans for growth. As such, we represent an opportunity for investment into the industry in the UK and investment globally to provide global services via our low Earth orbit satellites, and to grow an opportunity for everybody, from the aspirational school child wanting to study science through to the postgraduate degree holders at universities. This is part of the transformation of Britain into a high-tech economy.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. I hope you enjoy the view of the launch from where you are. You've got, front row seats.
I've got the front row seat, Georgie, and the golden ticket. Delighted.
Thank you very much. Well, while the final preparations are being made in Kourou, let's take a look back to early this week when the Soyuz VS-27 rocket was rolled into position onto the launch pad. Here it is in action with commentary from ArianeSpace's Advanced Studies Director, Vincent Bordel.
The first combined operations performed in the Guiana Space Center have consisted in the integration of the complete stack of 34 OneWeb satellites on the frigate upper stage. It has been followed by the encapsulation phase with the fairing installation, so an operation that has been performed half fairing by half fairing. These combined operations have been done vertically in dedicated facilities and clean rooms, and have included, of course, different interface checks, electrical verification, and so on. The last operation performed in the Guiana Space Center clean rooms has consisted in the installation of the OneWeb mission logo on the fairing. Three days before the launch, the Soyuz 3 stage has been horizontally transferred from the MIC, that is to say the launcher integration building, to the launch pad, as you can see on the video. And once arrived on the launch pad, the Soyuz 3 stage has been vertically tilted, an operation that requires a lot of attention and a very careful managing. And once the launcher was fully vertically set up, the launchpad mobile gantry has been safely installed around the launcher. On its side, the completed upper composite has been transferred to the launchpad and hosted inside the mobile gantry. It has been then integrated and finally prepared on top of the Soyuz 3 stage, and after completion of this installation, the launchpad operation have been initiated with line connection, setup, and different verifications.
Well, thank you very much, Vincent. Well, let's now go over to the launch pad and the Jupiter Launch Control Center to see and hear that final countdown, because I can tell you that we've got 1 minute 47 or 45 seconds until liftoff. So what we're going to do now is we're going to be hearing from the DDO. Now, he is the person that is in charge of the overall mission, and we're going to be hearing him give his commands over the next minute or so. So in those last 30 seconds, we're going to have 3 parts to the engines being lit. Firstly, there's going to be the preliminary thrust level. That's then going to be followed by an intermediate thrust level, and finally the full thrust level. So very shortly.
Attention pour moins une minute.
Okay, so that is the DDO announcing that we have 1 minute until liftoff. The next thing that he's going to give is an instruction for the upper mask retraction, which we're actually going to see. So that's going to be happening in just a few seconds, and pretty much straight off the bat of that, he's going to begin the launcher ignition sequence, which is the actual start of the engines being ignited. So we should be hearing very shortly his next instruction, and there we go. That
Largage du Mac AZM.
Retracted.
À tous de DDO. Attention pour le début de la séquence d'allumage lanceur.
Amazing stuff. And he will be then going into that beginning of the launcher ignition sequence. So our next thing we're going to hear from him.
20 secondes. Largage du Mac VKM.
Okay, so that is the onboard instruction for the power to start. You can start to see the smoke billowing out. And we've got the countdown.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, Unité, décollage VS27 OneWeb.
Yes, and there we have it. Liftoff of OneWeb's Launch 13 from Kourou in French Guiana. Gosh, this is the moment that you tune in to watch a live rocket launch, isn't it? To see it go from that launch pad and hurtle, and look at it hurtling, into orbit. It's always this moment that I always think of, the months of preparation and the number of people involved to get it to this point. And how really this launch does take us one step closer to OneWeb's mission to connect the unconnected. Now, this, of course, is the second time that the launch has taken place at this precise location. And to begin with, we could see the rocket going up from the tracking camera. But because it's quite cloudy conditions, we've now moved on to the mock-up of seeing exactly what it's doing. So the animation is going to take us through each stage of the launch. So we're going to receive confirmation, and as we do, we will talk you through what that confirmation means here in the studio. So the first event that we're looking and listening out for is the booster engine jettison, and that's going to happen after the rocket has burnt all their propellant. Once they've completed their burn, the boosters are no longer required. So we are jettisoned to remove weight. So that is going to be taking place in about 30 seconds. So it's going to get rid of that unnecessary weight, because to begin with, it's quite hard to get the rocket up.
Fonctionnement nominal des moteurs du premier et deuxième étage.
Done that launch. I'll pause there as he's saying some more. He's obviously doing his job very well, and you can see the animation there to the left as we wait for confirmation of the jettison. And there we go. Did you see that? That was the booster separation coming off, and I can confirm that that has happened successfully. So that is the cutoff of the first stage of the booster separation. So, as I said before, those boosters have now been discarded because there is no unnecessary weight. They've done their job. They don't need to be attached to the rocket anymore. Okay, so the next thing that we're listening out for is the fairing separation. Now, the fairing itself protects the 34 OneWeb satellites that are sitting at the top of the Soyuz launch vehicle. Now, at liftoff, there are huge acoustic vibrations and also friction, which occurs when the launch vehicle is flying through that really dense part of the Earth's atmosphere. So when the launch vehicle reaches an altitude of around 100 kilometers, there's actually very little atmosphere. So there's no need to keep that fairing on the launch vehicle to protect the satellites. So that is when the fairing is going to come off, and that should be happening, I've just got confirmation, in around 30 seconds. So let's just stay tuned for that. Again, we're going to hear confirmation from the DDO, who's going to say that that fairing separation has taken place. So we've got 10 seconds to fairing separation. And as you can see, we can see what altitude we're at and what distance we're at. And there we go, the animation has confirmed, I'm sure we'll get it in confirmation from the DDO himself very shortly, that the fairing separation has taken place. There we go. There we go. And that's the first time we get to have a glimpse of the satellites themselves. Remember, there's 34 of them that are going to be dropped off into low Earth orbit.
Fonctionnement nominal du moteur du deuxième étage.
Okay, we're now about to see the second stage separation. Okay, so let me just go through this again. We've already seen the boosters come off because they've done their job of getting the rocket off the ground and into the air around 70 kilometers up. And then we've just had confirmation of the fairing coming off, which was there to protect the satellites as it's going through that really dense part of the Earth's atmosphere. And now we are waiting, I think it's under 30 seconds, on the second stage separation, which is when the second engine is discarded as well because it has completed this job. So we will wait for that confirmation. There we go. The animation has confirmed that the second separation has been completed. So the mission is going very well so far. Okay, with the launch underway, let's hear from Vincent Bordel once more for a summary of what we've seen so far.
The today's mission of the Soyuz starts with the 4 boosters phase for a duration of approximately 2 minutes. After the separation, the second stage of the launch vehicle, that is to say the core stage, took the reign during less than 3 minutes, and the fairing is then jettisoned. Few seconds before separation of the core stage, the third stage is ignited, and at that time the central core is separated. 9 minutes and 24 seconds after liftoff, the third stage is separated from the nose module. The nose module includes the frigate upper stage, the dispenser, and the 34 OneWeb satellites. The frigate upper stage mission starts with a first ignition of its main engine in order to reach the intermediate transfer orbit, followed by a long ballistic phase. A second ignition is performed for circularization and injection into the satellite separation orbit. The satellite release sequence will start with first the separation of the 2 satellites integrated on the top conical part of the dispenser, and then successive separations of the 32 satellites integrated on the cylindrical part of the dispenser from the top row to the bottom row, 4 satellites at once. As illustrated on the 3D animation, it means that 9 separation events are necessary for the complete release of the 34 OneWeb satellites. Between each separation event, the sequence is identical, so 19 minutes, which consist in a series of maneuvers. Firstly, tilting of the nose module, then a boost of the frigate attitude control system with a very small delta V during few seconds, in order to ensure enough distance between the satellites and avoid any collision. Then a new tilting of the nose module to the required orientation for the satellite separation. The separation is ordered by the frigate upper stage, and it is a smooth separation ensured by relaxation of specific springs. The end of this complex release sequence occurred a little bit more than 3 hours and 30 minutes after liftoff, with the 9th and last satellite separation.
Well, thanks again to Vincent there for providing the commentary on what has happened in the mission so far and what we've got to look forward to. So, coming back to our theme of responsible space, every OneWeb satellite is fitted with a grappling fixture. And this innovative feature enables OneWeb to operate its fleet with a sustainable approach. Let's take a look exactly how it all works. Okay, well, very shortly, we're going to get close to the third stage engine cutoff and separation from the nose module, the next stage of this important mission. Now, as Vincent just showed us, the mission does continue over the next 3 hours, with the 34 satellites being dropped off in a predetermined sequence in an orbit of 450 kilometres above the Earth. After this, oh, and I have just got confirmation, I'll stop there because the scheduled third stage separation has been confirmed. So that is really, really good news. That's the next stage of the mission completed, and everything seems to be going very smoothly.
Acquisition par la
so
station
far.
télémesure de Bermude
And that's the DDO confirming
et séparation de l'étage frégate.
Yes, okay. So you probably just heard him say the frigate main engine, and what that means is that the next part of the sequence in the first ignition is going to happen, and that is the frigate main engine. So the frigate is the smartest part of the launch vehicle, and it will release the 34 satellites in a series of 9 separations. So this is a really crucial part of the mission, and I can confirm that we've only got 10 seconds until that is going to take place. So I'll refer to the animation to see it happening. And that's it. So the scheduled first frigate ignition has taken place successfully. Which I'm very delighted about, because that means we're going to be leaving the Launch 13 mission for the time being. Now, of course, there's still many parts left of it, and you can follow the final stages of the rest of the mission across OneWeb social media channels. And of course, you can find out more about OneWeb's responsible space commitment, which of course has been the theme of Launch 13. If you head over to www.responsible.space, you can find out more information there, or join in the conversation on social just using the hashtag #ResponsibleSpace. I want to say a big thank you to Maurizio for telling us about OneWeb's responsible space ethos, to Vincent for his commentary on the mission videos, and to Stefan and Chris at the Jupiter Launch Control Centre. I also want to thank the entire team at OneWeb and ArianeSpace for allowing us to join them live for the launch, and also want to congratulate them on another successful mission. And it won't be long until we can do it all again, so do look out for details of Launch 14. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.